Good God. Not really.
In the heart of central Gower is a rough grassy moor, next to forest and farmland. The rain falling on these flows into a rarely visited stream. Then it travels south. Gently meandering, it flows through dense, pathless woodland. At the tiny hamlet of Llethryd, it passes under the road bridge and is soon lost from view. Within a few hundred metres, it disappears completely into the limestone rocks. This debris-choked sinkhole is called Llethryd Swallet.
Oh, right, yeah.
Beyond and down lies a unique concealed landscape and passages that lead to Gower's version of the Hall of the Mountain King. The valley continues on as Green Combe. It has no surface stream and is a beautiful, quiet woodland. During very brief periods of extreme rainfall, the water overflows Llethryd Swallet to form spectacular floods that sometimes continue right down the Green Combe Valley. These events last for just a few hours and clearly indicate that all the underground drainage has been overwhelmed. At the southern end of Green Combe, a much enlarged water flow mysteriously reappears from a pool called Well Head. Until 1994, this pool was used as a water supply for Gower. For many years, its relationship to the stream that sinks in Llethryd was unclear. Some even believed that the Well Head water came underground all the way from the Brecon Beacons. From Well Head onwards, the stream is known as Pennard Pill. Flowing through the ford in Parkmill village, and then on as a delightful small river, it finishes over the sand to join the sea in Three Cliffs Bay. In 1947, a group of South Wales and Mendip cavers dug their way into the first part of Llethryd Streamway. It was tight and full of rotting vegetation. Understandably, they were not inspired by it and did not push their explorations very far. 3 years later, the local cave explorers, Maurice Clegg Taylor, and his sisters Eileen and Marjorie, began their systematic exploration of the caves under Gower. They negotiated the constricted first section of the Llethryd underground watercourse to discover and photograph its huge decorated main chamber, which they called the Great Hall. This was a big attraction to other cavers, and subsequently was visited by thousands, many being young and inexperienced. In the early days, when conservation ethics were less strong than now, formations were touched and muddied. Then, with the discovery of many huge caves under the Brecon Beacons in the latter part of the century, the cave fell out of favour. At the start of the 21st century, the cave became completely inaccessible, blocked with boulder movement and flood debris just inside the entrance. "400 metres further down the Green Combe Valley is the archaeologically important Tooth Cave. South Wales cavers dug out a very awkward rift at the lower end of the first chamber. They then followed a pebble crawl that eventually broke through into the impressive main passage to make Tooth Cave the longest cave in Gower. This serious and strenuous cave can only be accessed during settled dry weather. When it rains heavily, the main passage and entrance crawls will be almost completely submerged, with dire implications for unwary explorers. The cave has fascinating features and a range of currently forming as well as ancient sediments that point to glacial and interglacial influences on the system. However, since the known cave only takes floodwater, there must also be an unexplored passage that takes the normal stream flows from Llethryd to the wellhead resurgence. In 2018, investigations into the evolution of the Green Combe landscape led to a renewed enthusiasm to get back into Llethryd Swallet, but ideally by a less floodable and blockage-prone route. These efforts began in a depression 50 metres south of Llethryd Swallet.
There it is. There it is.
This was found to have a strong, cold outward draft in summer,
I can see about 6 foot down, easy.
a sure sign that it links with a larger cave system.
Head first.
It seemed a probable backdoor entry to the Great Hall. Terry Moon's well-rated survey sketch of the Llethryd Cave was produced in the 1960s, and it placed the Annex, a large offshoot from the Great Hall, almost under the depression. So a year of optimistic digging gained access to small but intriguing passages.
That's the one I was a bit worried about too.
These carried the all-important draft.
Yeah, the drop down is about 10 foot. I can't tell, so I'm going to put a ladder down. No problem. Right, it's choked in that direction.
Completely.
We've just been digging mud out, but we've managed to break a break through the flake so we can fit. Now the mud's been hauled out.
But unfortunately led to an impossibly tight fissure.
Height of the passage up to 1 metre. Definitely some rock will have to come out to make it agreeable. Because it's not much point making a cave that's too small for anybody.
Just as this dig closed down, a potentially more accurate survey was rediscovered. This placed the Annex 100 metres further to the west, under higher woods and fields away from the valley floor. So the search for a drafting entrance moved up into the wooded slopes.
Found another one.
We soon located a strongly drafting but very tight rift. It could well descend vertically right into the Annex Chamber, if we were lucky. All through the exploration, the howling draught kept us enthusiastic again. Unfortunately, we were not lucky. Digging here was extremely difficult and dangerous. Much of it was in a rift less than 20 centimetres wide. Although a slightly wider space could be optimistically imagined at the base of the rift, the risk of entrapment was just too great.
Right, I got a problem, because this has gone as well. My foot is underneath it.
Oh good.
It's all right. I think I can escape it.
In the end, only one boot was destroyed.
Oh, it's a bit caved in at the toe. I wonder how that happened. The ladder will take me too narrow if I go too far that way. This is better because, I don't know, I've just got more room to move. It just goes down and down into the depths of the earth. I don't know, it's difficult to tell.
The rift was named Cockle Pot, after deposits of mixed small marine molluscs were found mixed in with glacial moraine sediments deep in the rift. These were likely to have been deposited at the start of the Anglian glaciation some 450,000 years ago. So while both Barnes Cave and Cockle Pot were of scientific interest, neither provided an alternative route into Llethryd Cave, and in some ways posed more questions than answers to our problem. The situation was about to change during the drought conditions of July 2021.
Extremely very dry conditions.
With the tiny stream sinking in Llethryd Swallet and a strong, cool cave draught coming out, we decided to recheck the blocked entrance.
This copious door, which is much bigger than I remember it, was the only way in when that lot was wired off. For a short while, this entrance became unnecessary because there is a natural entrance. You drop down that triangle and just go straight in.
Cleaning here, there's nothing like washed in.
Right, gonna go and have a look.
Yeah.
What we found were boulders and rotting debris,
Original top surface of this bank.
with a sump still blocking and hiding the old crawls into the cave. Possible routes underwater were certainly not very inviting.
The lower sections have all got blocked up. So the question is, where does it go under here?
Just blocked up with wood.
All the wood needs to come out.
Doesn't smell too nice either.
Not very healthy, is it? So it continues.
We're going to poke the camera in, you can have a look. Good.
Yeah.
It's just a wall of muck.
Oh, there's water coming in towards you where you are.
Yeah, unfortunately. Okay, now another one. I got a space, just underwater, I think. Yeah, if we had a pump.
Are you enjoying your cool bath?
Yeah, great.
Then a tiny slot and a glimpse of a possible wider passage was spotted between loose boulders, just above water level.
I've moved a boulder here, out the way.
Oh yeah.
A few adjustments later, and our smallest team member was through into an inclined passage.
I'm going to go back.
Might want a crowbar.
The big bar is coming through. You and Gareth work together as a team now.
I can hear water, it's only a trickle. Won't be as much water in the stream, I don't think. More like a bathroom tap.
The tiny stream had been found again, trickling down to a murky, shrimp-occupied pool in a very narrow rift.
Are you down by the pool?
Yeah. Did you have another way where you were, or do you think this is that?
I think that's the first one we look at. The shrimp pool full of shrimps. One of the big ones are dashed off. Now a tiny draft coming through. Very, very tiny slot. Pretty blocked at the moment.
This could have been the Needle's Eye duck of the old Route Inn. A climb up a loose slope above the pool looked a better option.
There's the pool, and then we're going to climb up here. So we're going to see if we can do something about these loose blocks.
Just be careful in case anything comes down. Well, it goes on 3 metres and then goes round a corner, and it's narrow. The ceiling's solid.
Okay. Luke's coming up the loose, screwy slope, 3.5 metres above the shrimp pool.
We were now into a rift with a crumbly white wall and unreliable hanging dagger blocks in the roof.
One of us quite fractured there. Everything I touch is a bit.
Well, I think that wall is your friend,
Yeah.
and then everything else is a bit loose. It's yellowish on top.
Yeah.
Is there a bit of flowstone on the top there? And we've got this slightly hanging piece. At the moment it's still quite locked into the mud.
This led us to an intimidating small descending hole.
Well, I can't see yet. I suspect it doubles back on myself once I get down into that hole.
We're above the original route. Yeah, complete head case.
I've just moved that stuff out.
Okay.
This is pretty solid above me. That's like a big lump of concrete. I mean, it's not concrete, but it's...
Where do you reckon the air's coming from?
There's definitely air coming from down here. It's cold.
Yeah, feel it on my hand.
I don't know how far down here I can get, if I can get my whole body in or not. I'm in. just getting low enough that I can see. There's just debris on the floor, but my feet aren't touching the end of the passage. If I can take it, I can show you what's
running
down
now. Okay.
So down by my feet, there's a passage that's quite narrow. Yeah, and there's also a passage here to the right. But there could be a way onwards there. We'll have to clear some stones first. Am I what?
Are you in solid rock?
Absolutely.
With so many positive indicators, we had lots of optimism for the next trip in.
Let's see if we can make any sense of what we've just seen.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Hello, baby.
Before we could go further, we had to stabilise some worrying roof boulders and dig out a higher route that would be safer if it rained.
I suppose that means we don't have to climb down and back up again.
Well, I think the idea would be to make another high level one there,
Yeah.
and then you could avoid the river if it was rising.
We thought that the section near the entrance we could probably enlarge quite easily, so I might have to go and get the drill.
Well, that thing will probably lift out if it has to.
Whoa!
So I have to dig down. Well, that's great news.
Make it direct route all the way. So this alternative route that they dug out last time seems to be working all right.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah, no problem
So-
with it. Is it, well, apart from the fact it could be a bit cleaner.
What?
A bit
Cleaner?
cleaner.
Are you fussy?
When this was done, the newly named S-bend constriction was tackled by the thinner team members.
You can point your legs that way. The passage goes also round to the right. Turn round if you can. Can you see the passage off?
This way?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm fairly certain that it's opening into something beyond. It's got a strong draft. It looks wide open.
There's a couple more corners on this boulder here that could probably come off, and then it's, you know, it's 2 foot high. Then you can walk into it.
That's fine.
This led to a gnarly crawl, strewn with loose block barriers. It had clearly never been visited before, so a new discovery and going in the right direction. We had arrived at a clear descent into lower chambers, but we'd have to go down through a boulder choke, apparently held together with a single suitcase-sized block just pinned at one end onto mud.
You can look that way. One with the veins on there appears to be supported on it.
Okay.
And then it's got further stones going all the way up. Yeah. So we sort of just don't want to touch that pile. That's the block that we're trying to avoid, that one there.
We named this boulder the Grim Reaper. The consequence of it giving away while anyone was underneath was summarised with the words, "Game over."
It's just that boulder that you've got your arm on that I was...
That one I'm less worried about than the ones further down.
So you think it's quite well pinned on the right?
I think it's very well. What we will need is a way of rigging a rope now, just in case.
Loose rock that, isn't it?
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of this.
But if you were much bigger than me, that's going to be a bit awkward, I think.
Yeah, so you're kind of doing a...
Oh, I see. You're going up and down, are you?
Yeah.
Good. We released you from a fate worse than death.
But that's solid, isn't it, where I crawled under?
Yeah. We've got to clear all this line, make this a safe access line. So this is this rock's the Grim Reaper. We cautiously climbed down under the Grim Reaper. There's a squeeze here, which is what we're going to try. Through the still unstable boulder pile.
Taking a lot of care just not to touch anything.
Drop down, very big boulder.
This whole chamber is just composed entirely of large, loose
Boulders.
up the top, all the way round, and all the way down. That's in the base of the chamber.
Well, ahead of me, it gets low. Flow of water here, flowing over to my right, so it's flowing that way.
At the bottom, we found evidence of the stream.
Little streamway that we've dropped down into.
We were now very close to getting back into the old route into the cave.
Camera maintenance.
It looks a lot better than it was before.
Look, it's red.
Yeah.
And after repeated descents through the choke, we got used to it, especially after some scaffolding poles were added to hold some boulders in place. The next trip proved to be the breakthrough. An awkward descending rift led to a hidden passage.
About 4 metres down from where I am, a sort of loose material and a rift passage with a draft. I think that's going to be the way. It looks like there's an arrowhead. I'll follow you down.
Okay.
That's the passage. It's a little bit squeezy in places. We've come to a confluence.
There, the rocking boulder climb of the original route suddenly appeared. The choke at the top of this climb would have led back to the Needle's Eye Duck.
And then there's a way down that looks more like it.
Yeah, there's water down there as well, isn't there? I don't know if that hole is tiny or huge. Lots of passage. We're in the streamway, I suspect.
Yeah, I think we're in. This bit of passage looks very similar to the picture we took in 2003. See these two notches on the side? I'll just see if I can get the same sort of angle that I took then.
From our old pictures and a Clag Taylor's photograph.
Strong signs of powerful running water. Let's have a quick look round and see if there's a way on. I'll just go to the next hole and see if it carries on. Oh yeah, it's big again.
Gareth was keen to dash downstream to check if the route on was clear.
Can you get through under there?
Yeah. That's definitely wider than the hole I came through.
And you've got open cave ahead,
Oh,
basically.
yeah. Then a slight right then left.
Yeah.
Then a further 43 metres, same direction.
Yeah.
Then a huge cavern with at least 4 ways onwards.
That might be where there's a climb up.
Yeah, and there's definite drops down as well.
And a drop down into the lower series.
On the next trip, we took a rope and photo kit to record our return to the Great Hall.
So we're not sure what's attached to what. Is it too tight? No, that was alright going into the wider bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's misty today down here. Oh, this is more of the rift.
Putting mud high up. Yeah.
These banks of stones. Let me climb up. Oh, there's something up there.
The decades-old rope on the climb up was still there, partly buried in mud.
What sort of state it's in?
Well, it's buried in the rope. Okay, have we got the other rope? Nasty boulder here, which is completely clear now beneath. So if you go straight, yes.
This is all new, the mud. Rocks in here as well. Can you see where it's come from?
Sticky out bits, yeah.
I think it needs an extra piece of rope on the bottom.
Floodwater reaches over 10 metres up from the antechamber, and after the climb we found animal burrows. It had at least 5 entrances and spoil heaps, but no animal remains were found. How they got there this far underground is unclear.
Perhaps they got washed in.
Could easily.
Well, what are they going to live off?
They probably live
Leaves.
to dig holes. I don't know whether that's something they'll instinctively do.
Coming up some rather loose mud-covered material. And the huge black.
So at last we entered the Great Hall. We could see that during floods, water can rise to cover the floor with a temporary lake. It would be over 3 metres deep and up to 50 metres long, and the largest known natural underground lake in South Wales. Left behind is grey slippery mud. Drip modelled mud formations decorate the lower floor. Calcite formations that still have a water supply have been washed clean and white after every muddy flood.
The column.
Old flowstone that no longer have drips feeding them remain mud-stained. Some of the younger members of the team could just hear a high-pitched piping sound. It was hard to exactly locate.
Did she buzz?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's making it up.
No.
We found it coming from a spiral stalactite.
You should hear a zit zit sound.
The singing styl's noise is probably caused by a thin flow of water passing through a central pipe inside. Beyond a portcullis of large stalactites, blocks disappear up a steep incline, and we climbed the slippery rocks with care. This felt a very special place. Between the boulders lie just a few undamaged jewels. Memories of previous visits flood back, with our children decades ago, when only much dimmer lights were available.
And Harry looked pretty miserable at the time, but I think he must have been about 7 when I didn't put him off caving.
We illuminated the iconic groups of curtains and stalactites with our modern filming and photo lights. Dulled with a mud cover low down, but with astounding colour and translucency when beyond the reach of muddy hands.
Oh. You can't go wrong, can you?
That's awesome. Oi.
The silence of the hall was overwhelming. It had been like that for over 500,000 years. The view from the top is one of Gower's extraordinary natural landscapes, made all the more exquisite by difficulty of access and rarity of viewing.
Another set of classic formations up here.
All the years of effort to regain access had been worthwhile.
These little helictites here, they're so thin.
More stunning curtains. And that's off into the upper reaches that we're not going to today.
Part of what has motivated me all along is really for people to be able to share so much of the stuff with Gower, you know.
But it was also obvious what we had to do next. We needed to protect, and where it was still possible, clean up these defaced wonders for future generations to enjoy. Our first task was to highlight fragile and scientifically important features using marker tape to prevent further damage. Some had tape from decades ago, and it was amazing to find sections that had been buried by stalagmite growth.
Completely calcited in.
Such high speeds of deposition showed that natural repair could take place where there were active drips. This process was particularly well shown on one of the largest and most peculiar formations, called by the tailors the atomic explosion, but more recently known as the mushroom. Even the tailors recognised that they did damage back in the 1950s. Only a few years after discovery, the mushroom was much stood upon and smeared with mud. However, we were amazed to find a thin layer of crystallisation of calcite building over the mud. The muddy areas now had a sparkly matte grey appearance. The crystals had even grown on the old conservation tape. The calcite may have come from a fine calcium carbonate saturated water spray from a huge stalactite cluster high above in the arched roof of the chamber. So here we were able just to let the natural processes continue the repairs. The other huge stalagmite bosses, curtains and columns in the Great Hall had no modern water falling on them. They are relic features, probably 500,000 years old, that in some cases are stuck on boulders that have themselves subsided down with the slope. We were very concerned that these formations would be permanently stained with mud, but we made an important discovery. Because there had been no new calcite growth to seal in the mud, we could almost totally wash it off.
That's the muddy part. And that's just had an introductory little wash. Is it working? The spray?
Yeah. Definitely coming off.
So began one of the most rewarding and addictive conservation projects we have ever done. Our first sessions were on the stalactite next to the great curtain. We used simple brushes and a hand pump water jet. The mud was mostly washed off, We were like large-scale dental hygienists.
So take a bit higher, see if that comes on. Yes,
Oh, it does, yeah. I didn't expect that.
Excellent job.
Is there much water left in?
No, it's nearly empty.
Right, okay.
Finding sufficient clean water was a major problem. During the dry weather we required for safe access, there were only a few drips. We put several collecting pots under these on the muddy floor. When we returned after some rain, our pots had all disappeared, but were later found deeper in the cave.
Oh, bucket. Digging bucket.
Yeah, that's how we
Well, it might be in a drip bucket.
They'd been washed away when floods rose into the chamber. We therefore had a 2-day session raising water from the stream some 25 metres below. Using 12-gallon drums, this was very hard work.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, next one.
Next one.
I can put it up from here. I'm just going to put a bag over the edge so it's not digging into the mud. That's cool. And pull.
The church and the steeple are at the highest and driest part of the hall and were in a worse state than other formations. 5 decades ago, cavers used to climb on the top of these to be photographed, so they were coated with a particularly thick, caked-on mud. But luck was again on our side. The formations are extremely old and had also shifted downslope, so there were no active drips to seal in the mud.
You see the mud dripping away at the bottom.
Many cavers came to help and became quite addicted to this enthralling process.
It looks like I'm doing a good service to this.
Wow, look at that.
Yay.
very pretty up here.
And that was 1 barrel of water, was it? Celebrating with a piece of pizza.
We got another 2 litres. Got the other steps going up a lot easier. I guess people have been climbing over it. Yeah, look at that coming off there now.
This time armed with a battery-powered spray gun.
That thing, like that.
Oh, there's some handholds up there, isn't there?
We'll aim for those first. Should be able to get the whole of this boss screen as well.
That's it. Yes.
Oh yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely a useful technique.
The mud came off to leave perfect pink, yellow and white flowstone.
A lot of improvement on those higher formations as well.
Although we have not finished, the formations have now regained much of their original magnificence.
That is wonderful to have done.
Yeah.
Formations covering boulders under the huge stone.
It does sparkle a bit, doesn't it?
Just to the left of the climb into the Great Hall is a chamber with a very different character.
And if you look right round over there, that triangle, where there's a block with a fallen stand on, that's got to be the annex.
What have we got there now?
The tailors called this the Annex. This chamber was of particular interest to us. It was a possible target for gaining alternative access from the surface. Its exact location and even the chamber's shape were in question. These varied between the old surveys, though all descriptions agreed it was dangerously loose. When the annex was discovered, the tailors believed, probably in error, that it was blasting in a small nearby quarry that had made it so unstable. Their information led to the closure of the quarry, and this may have saved parts of the cave from being destroyed. The approach is via a slippery rift with a worrying V-slot beneath.
Trying to make sure I'm not trampling anything. I think if I go up to the left and round.
Oh, this is quite pretty.
Then a clamber up towards a dark, much larger space. We could also see huge fallen rocks that had rolled down recently enough to have smashed stalactites. They had come from high up in the chamber and bounced down the slope to smash into the entry rift. The lowest part of the annex does have some pretty, if battered, formations.
Lovely things all the way up there as well.
Quite a rift.
However, the eyes are drawn to rock debris sloping steeply upwards, looking lethal at the top.
Enormous collapses off the roof. Be careful now on that side. The roof it becomes distinctly less stable. If you find any old drill bits and ear defenders, do make sure you say.
The central part of the ceiling is the most solid, and there are ancient tubes visible that might lead upwards towards the woods and the field above.
There's a tube up there, but I have no idea how far it goes. I mean, there's an excellent E4 that leads up to it as well.
The sloping floor of the chamber is a frost-shattered mix of massive blocks, stones and mud, the product of Ice Age temperatures. The rubble has grotesque, colourful beauty.
Tremendous colours.
Some of it is still moving downwards, so we climbed delicately.
Careful now. You're very, very legendary.
The top of the chamber is a very frightening place to stand, with fractures everywhere.
Yeah, I can see them. If you come down to this angle, you'd see them.
Tree roots can be seen in the roof bedding planes, along with ancient relic passages, half full with gravelly mud.
They're going down the side of this big rubble pile, but I don't really want to be that close.
General feeling about not wanting to be that close to anything much around here.
Shed-sized boulders are loosely interlocked in the open jointed roof.
Yeah, this stuff is quite big and stable.
No, that's not looking nice. The big rock I'm looking at.
I think, Duncan, I bravely run away. So I was the craziest one of them all.
You were the craziest one of them all.
The annex certainly has character, but it doesn't feel like a place to linger. Pinning the exact relationship of the annex to the surface needed, if possible, radiolocation between an underground group
The maximum height is that slot.
and the field above. This was an interesting exercise, but no communication was achieved. What was really needed was a modern survey of the whole cave. Local caving experts carried out the work, and this provided us with both an accurate knowledge of the shape of the cave and its relationship to the surface. It also allows us to discover more about the current route of the water through the known cave and possibly beyond. In low flow, there is almost no flowing water seen in the cave. In flood conditions, there is clear evidence that much of the cave is full of water, except the big high chambers. We cannot see this physically. Any sustained rainy weather blocks the entrance passages. Our new entrance passages have reduced the risk of entrapment.
That was our climb up. Still flowing through there, yeah?
It is also possible to be accidentally trapped in the cave by floodwater. This happened on October the 18th, 1957. Two Hereford cavers, Innet Holmes and Paul Hartwright, were trapped for around 6 hours in the Great Hall when an unpredicted flood blocked their exit. When a slight fall in water level occurred, Without knowing if the flood would quickly return, they made an extremely serious struggle against the stream. To finish with a do or die dive up through the torrent emptying from a lake at the entrance. A small ageing entrapment survival kit, begun by the tailors early in their exploration, remains on the boulders above the mushroom in the Great Hall.
Even if it's got maggots in it, it's still edible. Tracklard. Oh, there's a can. The rest of them look alright. If somebody gets stuck in here, you could survive by eating them.
Beyond the Great Hall, the stream follows the sump passage, which is coloured pink on this survey. This leads to the end of the cave at the permanent sump fall. To get down to the sump passage, there is a very uninviting muddy rift.
I think getting down will be fine, to be honest. It's relatively soft landing. And getting back up will be the problem.
After each flood, it is as slippery as ice. On our first descent, it was very wet, so we laddered and roped it.
So follow me, down to the hollow, and then just water. Oh, yes, man.
It's nice to have something to grab hold of if you're on the way out.
Below is a large, completely mud-smeared chamber. On one side is a muddy ridge. This is the Camel's Back, that was an epic descent route used for many years. The chamber ends at a boulder descent, leading to an awkward rope climb.
Are you going to get back up there?
I don't know if I go.
Beneath the climb is the intermittent Sump 1. This can be just a pool, or even dry, but it creates a sense of borrowed time, as rapid deepening in a flood could trap a team beyond.
So a generous 6 inches.
After Sump 1, there is evidence water can move fast. This produces rounded scalloped tubes and pebble floors that are a nice contrast to the mud of higher chambers.
For these hard beds. Beautiful crystalline boulder.
The geology is also very decorative here.
Red walled, shirty layers. There's a lot of fretwork as well here.
Some distance on, boulder obstacles and fault breccia become more frequent.
And this fantastic
Oh, you can see the other side.
calcite filled in.
During the dry weather of last summer, these pools were the only water supply we could find to fill our drums for conservation cleaning.
Do not drink this. Got 2 sparrows.
That's Sump 2. 1, 2 containers already.
Further along, spaces through the boulders lead to the third mud chamber.
What's up there?
This is a surprisingly large rift and mud hall.
There's quite an extensive amount of holes and mud.
It's very, very muddy.
This is one area for further exploration. However, all this area still fills entirely in a flood.
And now we're right up above the stream there.
Beyond the third mud chamber, the stream passage has mud and leaf layers built up in floods, then removed by the fast flow when the water level drops again.
Greatly fretted bits of rock. Lots of holes in the ceiling as well.
These will be pressurized air pockets when the head of water could be over 20 meters when it backs up into the Great Hall.
Just before the sump.
Finally, we reached the Sump 3 pool, which is a duck in dry weather.
Yeah, I'm not going through there. Andy, it's a reasonably large chamber at the bus.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's nice to know.
Immediately after is the permanent Sump 4, almost the end of the accessible cave. Divers have attempted to explore this underwater system, but without success beyond a short distance in. The level of this sump is so close to that of the wellhead resurgence, a kilometre away, that there is almost no gradient between them. So this explains why large floods back up and can even flow down the valley on the surface above. However, there are animals that travel along these hidden passages.
Oh, there's a fish.
We had a mutually surprising meeting when we first reached these sumps.
There's two of them. Yeah, there's a big one.
A colony of eels, some over 60 centimetres long,
Well, they're sort of brownish.
are living in this Gower aquatic underworld.
Good God.
They hatched in the Sargasso Sea. Then they swam across the Atlantic, up Pennard Pill,
Bloody hell.
into the wellhead resurgence.
That's all of them, I think, isn't it?
These eels have negotiated the whole flooded underground route of the stream, growing to maturity in this remote, pitch-black location.
Well, this is exciting, isn't it?
To complete their life cycle, they must swim back through the cave, then across the ocean, to breed and die in the Sargasso Sea.
Yeah, an eel. Oh, good. Can you see him still?
Yeah, he's sticking his head out right at your camera.
Good God. Eel City.
They are just one more amazing reason why we must treasure and protect Llethryd Swallet. Truly the hidden jewel of the Gower Peninsula.
Lucky place. I discovered the benefits of the pressure washer.